Hey folks, so as I mentioned in the post, we are going to get Copilot to chat with us a little bit today and have a role-playing session. So as usual, I'm going to bring over my first prompt here that is copied and pasted because you definitely do not want to see me try to type something this long. I'm calling out a few things here in the prompt. We're telling it what the context is, that we're preparing for a difficult conversation with an employee. That can be anything you want it to be, or you could be preparing for a presentation or etc. We're telling them what the situation is, so they'll have some background there once we get into actually talking about the instances with this employee. Here's where we're kind of telling them what role we want them to play. So we're telling them we know this employee is resistant and belligerent. You may not want to use words like that, but that is my particular description here. And I want them to role play as the role of the employee. And then here I'm actually giving them a little bit of structure on how I want to go through this because I like to get the feedback kind of in the moment as much as I can. So I've asked it to structure it as, I'm going to say something to them as the employee. They will first act as a HR, employee relations, legal expert kind of person, in reaction and give me feedback on what I said to the employee, and then they're going to respond back to me as the employee. So giving them that just that's the kind of approach I prefer to take as I kind of go through this, so I can decide if I want to shift and change up things that I'm saying to the employee. So we're going to give it a go. And I am not entirely sure why this keeps popping up, but we're going to work our way through this. So we're going to say, why can't you discuss this topic? So I left that in the video. I've had this pop up once before. I'm not entirely sure what it is that caused it to shut down, but just because it has happened multiple times, I wanted to leave that in the video and show kind of what it's going to say. It looks like we're good to go, so I'm gonna continue on. So. I am going to go ahead and put in my next prompt and start the conversation with the employee. We're going to call this person John. And we're just going to say, hey, thanks for joining the meeting today. How are you doing? So we get the feedback from Copilot. It says, tone is good and professional. We are setting up some psychological safety, which is good for this kind of scenario, or reduce defensiveness. Um, and give some watch outs, which is realistic actually. Given a little bit of my past in employee relations, this definitely could go that way with that kind of entry here. But we're right now are assuming that it's still going well. So it did suggest a slightly firmer version, and then we get the response from John here, where we see him going into that belligerent tone there, or at least resisting a little bit, saying that he's not sure what the meeting's about. He's got a lot on his plate. Hoping this isn't some kind of vague feedback session. So we can see that is not starting off in an ideal direction. I'm going to try to dig into my bag of tricks here, see what I can do to diffuse the situation. I've got a prompt that we'll try to go in the next direction, and we'll start here. So I'm gonna say, give him some recognition that hey, it's a busy time, but I wanted to make sure I spoke to them soon after the occurrence. So we got the timeliness effect going on there. I'm gonna tell them that we want some feedback. I'm just gonna check in again one more time. To give kind of some additional safety, secure, and do we need to have this discussion on some other occasion. So we are getting our feedback here, from Copilot. It's telling us that, it's respectful. We're anchoring it. We're asking for permission to succeed or proceed. And that can help reduce the defensiveness. We do get some feedback that, latest occurrence could be vague. I'm coming back for that later. Is this a good time? And kind of suggest another way that we could go about this. So, um, John here continues being a little bit defensive and wants to know why he couldn't wait until our next meeting. If it's about the presentation, says that we've talked about it, doesn't know why we're rehashing it. But why I won't go too much further with this particular example. I wanted to call out that, some examples of it here. What I will note is that it's asking if we want to escalate the tone, or if we want to look at some different phrasing or etc. So there are some ways that we can continue to shift it if it's not going the way we want, or if we think we've got the resistant handled. Let's say, let's escalate the emotional tone. And here, we get a little bit more intense version, including a little bit of foul language. Apologies there, but you can see that have another example of a way that John could respond. It's talking about the tone. It's giving you some risk areas that you could look out for and recommends an approach that you should take with what your next line is. So, it is kind of customizable as you go along to give yourself a few different kinds of scenarios that you want to work with, and just kind of continue to build your skill sets and think about different ways that you want to respond. So hopefully it's helpful. Thanks.